Well, good morning, everyone. A little bit different today. We're going to do things a little bit different than usual. I'm usually seeing you in the evening while observing the moon. I've been absent for a while. Haven't gotten a video up in a while, so I figured we'd try something a little bit different today. I'm not going to be able to get a moon video up anytime soon due to a couple circumstances. But I wanted to talk about something else, something that I used to do in astronomy when I first started. And there's probably a lot of you out there that are interested in the videos that I do, the photography I do. Some of you may be doing some of these yourself, and there may be others of you who just enjoy going out and observing the moon if you have a small telescope. And one of the best things you can do to observe the moon is to actually draw what you're seeing. You can go out and observe the moon and observe lunar features, and you'll actually you'll miss a lot if you're just looking around and enjoying the view. One of the best ways to learn to observe is to actually sketch or draw what you're seeing. And that's what I used to do years ago when I first got into astronomy. So today I'm going to show you a very simple way of drawing. Now, you don't have to be an artist. I am by no way an artist. But I'll show you a technique that I used to make lunar sketches. I used to make my own records and make my own kind of little maps. It's very interesting. If you look at the book here in front of us, if you look at this is just a small section of the moon. That's the crater Archimedes over here. And down here is the crater. I want to try just doing a little sketch, and I've got to look up the name of that again. That is the crater Aristillus. It is, yeah, I want to make sure that was that Aristillus. It's on the floor of Mare Imbrium. I don't know if you can see this map very well, but it's located over in here. Here's Archimedes, and Aristillus is right in here. This is Mare Imbrium all over in here. So we're in a tight area right here we're looking at. Now, for sketching, you really should get yourself a sketch pad for drawing. It'll work better. I've got just a regular sheet of white paper here I'm going to use for demonstration purposes. And I'm going to adjust the contrast on this down a little bit because the drawing will show a little better if I darken up this image as we work. We'll see how it goes as I start drawing, and we'll see if it's dark enough or too light. But notice, first of all, the paper is very bright white, and when you look at the moon's surface, of course, it's got that grayish tone to it, grayish look. So the first thing to do is to make a surface to draw on. Yeah, I don't know how well this is showing up on the screen. I mean, I'll take a look. I may have to adjust this. And what I do first is just make a grayish background to work on. I'm going to adjust the contrast level just a little bit here. Make that show up just a little better. That's a little better. The image may be a little dark, but it may help this sketch show up a little better. You don't need a large telescope to do this. I used to work with a 3-inch, and over the years I worked with, of course, larger instruments. I'm not going to go too crazy here. We'll just get a little bit of a background to work on. But this will also work much better if you use a sketching paper. So here we got our background, and then normally what I do, and I forgot to get some ready. I think I've got some handy here. Is take a tissue, and this is where a sketch pad will work better, and then just rub the graphite that you put on the paper. It kind of smooths out the background, and it gives you see that grayish background we have looking there. And now we're going to sketch this crater here. And what I normally do first is just roughly, and I'm probably going to draw this a little darker than so you can see it on the screen, but first of all, I just make a circle roughly of the outline of the crater itself as a basis, and that's your starting point. You just make that roughly the shape of the crater you're drawing. Okay, and then the next thing that I do is I look at, and I'm going to overemphasize this a little bit when you're doing this at the telescope. A good way to practice, by the way, is to do just what I'm doing here, is take a book with some drawings on it and practice doing it in the house first before you attempt it at the telescope. Because it is a bit more difficult working outside at the telescope as opposed to working in your house where you're comfortable. Now what I do is I look at the shadow throw of the sun, and over here you can see this side is fully lit, and over here we have complete shadow with a peak here in the center. Now I'll roughly sketch in a line here, roughly showing where the bright lit area is, and it's something like this. I don't know how well that's showing up on the screen. So again, I'm going to have to over-exaggerate some of these lines, so it's going to make the drawing not look quite as nice as it really should. And then roughly sketch in the outline of the central peak. That's got a little curve here, and it comes up a bit here, and it's rounded to the back here. By the way, while I'm doing this, it brings up a point. I saw a site where a fellow again was making a point about the moon being a hologram or not real or whatever, and his point was made because every drawing he saw of a crater or feature, it was different from time to time. Well, first of all, he went from a time when telescopes were first invented, when they were very poor. They got a little better in the 1700s. They went to the acromats in the 1800s. So the telescopes advanced over the years, so the drawings naturally got better. But even so, you could take two observers, give them the exact same type of telescope, the exact same telescope today that you could buy. Get two telescopes exactly the same, sit them down side by side, have them draw the same lunar feature at the same power, sitting right next to each other. And each drawing's going to look a little bit different. Because everybody's drawing ability is different, everybody's technique's a little bit different. So I don't know where this idea is, because each drawing that this fellow looks at from map to map was different, that the moon is not real, that we were being lied to. I just don't know where that type of thinking comes from. But anyway, I'm just here to say that no, the moon is real. And when you sketch it, it's you know, everybody's ability is a little bit different. Then back here, I'm going to sketch in the line from the shadow, and it'll go something like this. Now this side here, first of all, we'll darken it up a little bit to show that this is going to be the shadowed side. See, now this is where your eye is going to really start to draw out detail that you normally wouldn't see. You can see here on that central peak there are some dark shadows in that mountain range, which we can draw in. Back here, there is a lit rim that comes up about like this, and around, and over, and down, and we're going to take care of that in a little bit. And then the outside of the crater flows out in a pattern something like this. This is the outflow, and there are features in here. And this is where you can get into as much detail as you really want to. And you can add, over here we have a little crater, another peak, which is throwing a shadow this way. And we'll put that in here. I'm not doing a bang-up job on this. I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes, so this is not going to be a bang-up drawing, but it'll just give you some idea of the technique that's involved. And then over here, there's a lot of structure that runs out this way. Now, notice this side over here, this area up in here, there's a lot of shadow, so we can start to darken this in, the shadows, about where they appear on the crater, roughly in here like this. It's fairly dark up around in here. There's a structure that runs down here, something like this. First, we're roughly laying in where a lot of this detail is. There's some structure on this wall over here where there's a dark shadow here, and then a highlighted region that comes around something like this. And okay, so now we've got the structure laid in a little bit. Back in here, this shadow kind of goes back farther this way, and then there's some rough hillocks and structures over in here. Now, to get this to really start to look like the crater there, go back and take out this walled area where the sun is really hitting it bright. Go back with just an eraser, take that out, and you can get rid of that darkish line in there too that we used. And there your crater wall starts to appear. And we can continue to draw. Some of this structure in here is very, very intricate and detailed, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail with that. I just want to go into the general idea. Again, there seems to be a dark ridging that runs along in here. We'll bring that back in here like this. A couple of brighter spots in here like this. And again, you can go back in and just with the eraser take out some of that darkness that you drew in there. And we can actually make this a little darker in here. And this area over here is very well lit. We'll bring this brightness up here. There's some structure down here. So as you can see, I'm also not only just using the lead, but I'm using the pencil to bring out some of that detail that's on the crater rim. You can see this is very bright here. We'll take out that grayish background we drew here. That's really highlighted pretty strongly there, and then it blends in back here. We'll get rid of that bright or that dark line that we used to outline the crater here, and just use the blending of the eraser to make the crater wall. Now down in here we have some, again, whitish marks. As you can see, they begin to show up a little better. This crater has a tremendous amount of detail in it. It probably would not be a good one to start with. I'm just kind of showing you the technique and what can be done. And again, what you're doing is, when you observe with the telescope, you're just generally getting a general overall view of what's there. But if you take the time to sketch what you're observing, your eye is going to start to pick up things that you never even knew were there before. They really start to pop out. It just makes a world of difference, and you'll be surprised over time. You train your eye, and it becomes very adept at picking up detail that the average person looking into a telescope would not see. In fact, I used to do a lot of this when the planet Mars, which I used to love to observe, was coming around. And I used to do a lot of this work to train my eye to get ready for observing Mars, because the better trained that your eye was, the better that observations you could make and the more detail you could make out. Now I notice here in the back of this crater, I notice there's some dark. Let's say I had put one here. There's another one here. And then it looks like regolith here it's kind of grayed in. So let's gray this up a little bit here, and it flows off to the back like this, like so, over into here, down. It's a little bit darker than the surrounding area, like so, and also over in here it's darker. And there's that white spot, and this is kind of grayish here. Back here, this shadow is darker in here. We want to darken this up. And once you get a lot of this detail in, we're going to smear it again with a tissue, and that kind of blends everything up together, and it starts to give you a general overall view of your crater. This here comes down. I've got that pretty well, but I don't like the way that back section is. Let's see, that's brighter. And then we need to darken this up just a little bit in through here. And we'll come back over here, and there's lots of little details in here. And I'm just going to fake some of this in. I'm not going to go crazy with it for this experimentation here and demonstration. And we'll take out some of this. This shadow back here is thin but relatively dark. And then we're going to do something near the end that really makes this all pop. It really makes it jump into view. Okay, and now just take a tissue and then lightly rub over it, circular motion. And like I said, I'm using a bright white printing paper for a printer, so it just doesn't work nearly as well as if you have a good drawing paper, like from a sketch pad or something like that. The paper's coarser, and it takes the ink much better. Now, here's where we really jump up the image. What I like to do is take a black Sharpie, the black pen, and those deep shadowed areas, go back in and refill them with a black marker. Let's see, there's a ridge there which we got to keep open, and it comes back around this feature here, and then around, there's a little bit of a curve here. It goes like this. Okay, and then I look at the top, so there's a little indent right here, which I want to include, so we'll include that. There's a bit of a dark shadow in here, and then just go and fill in the shadowed area. And this will really start to make, this Sharpie's hasn't done it. It's not really giving me a nice smooth finish like I want it to. There, this side of the tip is working a little better. But you can really have a lot of fun doing this. You'll be surprised at how much more detail you'll actually begin to see as you do this. Here now, the shadow on this is, let's see, it throws out here, and then it comes up around this hillock here and extends out slightly here like this, and it's so close. Dots there in the center, they're a little overdone, but we'll let that. Okay, then the back of the crater here has a dark rim shadow right here, and we'll sketch that in like this. It comes around and comes to this side and kind of falls off right here, kind of like this, something like that. And it's beginning to take on the look of a crater, at least somewhat. Take out some more of this grayishness here and accentuate that bright sunlight. And another way to do that too is to slightly darken the mar around the crater. That'll help accentuate that whiteness of the shadow. The sun striking the crater and shadow. This structure here needs to be darkened just a little bit here, and we can darken up the back of that with just a little bit here. Add a little more texture to that. Back here it kind of off a little bit. We could add a little more in here, into here like this. And it's basically completed. It's just a rough. It's there's all kinds of fine, like in here. There's see, there's some dark ridging in here. There's a darker area, which is dark enough black here, and kind of filled in. And there's a little curve in here. Basically, that's it. It's you can add. There's plenty more. Look at the detail in this area right here. It's probably not showing up very well because I have the camera set to show the detail of the drawing. But if I go back and show a brighter picture of the drawing, you can see this detail in here. That's really fine. I mean, you can go nuts trying to draw all that in, and it's hard. The longer you work at it, the better you get. And the point I'd like to make, remember when I did some of my earlier videos, I talked about the early lunar observers, and this is how they mapped the moon. They can you imagine? I mean, the entire, we're looking at a very tiny section of the moon here, and the entire disk of the moon. Can you imagine actually drawing that? They used to use micrometers and try to use anchor points and maybe anchor this crater to another crater, say up here somewhere. So they would get it laid out, but it's no wonder that each map you looked at looked a little bit different, and that's why I have to laugh when I see some of these sites and they're saying, well, we're not getting the true story about the moon. Every map I look at is different. Well, naturally, every map you look at is different. When you look at a hand-drawing map, they're all going to be different because everybody's drawing ability is different, and nobody's going to draw two features exactly the same. If you were to sit down and you're something like mine, but it's not going to look exactly like mine. And how you can use that to say that the moon is, I don't know, but some people do, and that's their business if that's what they want to do. But I just want you this technique. Yeah, we got some bright spots here, which no, they aren't there. So let's cover these in. I just wanted to show you this technique and show you that you can really have some fun. You don't have to be into photography. You can go out and make yourself a bunch of nice sketches. You can date them, keep them in a logbook. You will improve your observing skills tremendously. You'll have a lot of fun, and you'll end up with a nice portfolio of lunar drawings. Your technique will get very, very good later on. As I look at this, I see how horrible it actually is compared to the drawing to make years ago, but I haven't drawn in so long that I've really forgotten a lot of what I used to do. It's a lot of fun, and it kind of enhances your observing. You aren't just plopping a telescope down. You aren't just taking a quick look and then looking away and going on to something else. You're actually spending some time observing, and you're actually showing what you observed on this particular night. For an example, let's make sure there isn't one here, but if you see this crater pit over here on this drawing, on this map, and this might be a pit right there. Let's just make believe there's one right here, and I'll show you how quickly and easily you can put these in. You just make that crater pit circle like this. The sun through like this, so we just go like this. We know that this side over here is very bright, so we'll actually make this a little bit bigger around here like this. There's a crater, and then take out this side here. That's where the sun's hitting it. Take that out, and now you have a nice bright wall. And we come back here. We'll draw in some more of this background. We'll come back here with our Sharpie and draw in the shadow throw from the crater, like so. Fill it in. And then continued on to draw to make our, kind of give it a ridge. That's the top here and then the back of the car. But you need to make this front part here very, very bright.
That's where the sun's hitting, so you take out most of the pencil graphite in here to make that look very, very bright. And then you can just sketch in around the crater here to make it look like a little more of a rise in the crater. And there we have a little crater pit right next to our crater. So this, like I say, this is a technique that I used to use years ago when I first attempted photography, and I was not that good at it. It took me a long time to hone my skills in photography. And when I did, of course, I stopped the drawing. But it was a lot of fun. And in fact, I believe I talked about some early mappers of the moon, and a fellow by the name of Krieger actually used a technique which I found very odd that nobody else in astronomy used. When photography knew in the mid-18 or later 1800s, he actually took Paris Observatory and Lick Observatory low contrast photographs of the moon. Pardon me, I've got a bit of a cold going here. And he would take these low contrast prints, and he would take them to the telescope with him, and then he would draw over the photograph a very fine detail that he could see with the eye. You have to remember that back in the early days of photography, we needed exposures of 1 and 2 seconds, maybe even longer, of the moon. And if you've observed the moon at all, you notice that it wavers like looking across the hot road. And of course, that's just seeing, what we call seeing, atmospheric seeing, and it varies from night to night. Well, the technique we use today, and the technique I use when I'm imaging the moon, my moon videos, of course, that they're taking a webcam and they're shooting at 15 to 30 frames per second. So, in essence, you're freezing moments of good seeing, because when you observe with the eye and you watch the moon, it'll be bubbling away, and all of a second, for a second, 2 or 3 seconds, you'll get a period of beautiful, clear, steady seeing, and image detail that you could not see before will just pop up and become visible. And then it goes away right away with that boiling. And in the video, that's what we're after. We're after those fine moments. And the software we use to make final prints of some of our observations is we'll take 2,000 frame video, and we'll go through and we'll find as good a sharp a frame as we can, and we'll pick that one frame and we'll tell the computer, okay, I want the 50% frames that are as good or better than this frame we want to keep, and the 50% that are not up to this quality we want to drop. And the computer will do that and then make an image of those top 50% images on top of it and get a final print. And that's why we can get so much better images today than we used to years ago, just using regular photography. But for those of you who wanted to get out and observe the moon, aren't into photography or imaging, I thought you might enjoy this. I don't know if you've ever heard of it or even tried or even thought of doing it. But it's not that difficult. It's a lot of fun. As you can see, we've got an image here that looks, somewhat like this image here. It's a bit different. I can see the shadow on my drawing looks like it doesn't quite go as far over. But again, that's just a little difference in my technique in drawing. And as you go along, you'll pick up little techniques. Your drawing technique will get better, and you'll start producing some really nice images of the moon. A nice record of them. And what's interesting is that we observe one particular feature from night to night through as many
nights as a lunation as you can to a lunar month. You'll observe the shadow change. And that's another thing that gets me. These people talk about, well, every time you look at that crater, it looks different. Well, naturally it looks different because the sun angle is changing constantly as the moon goes through the month. So it's not going to look the same all the time. And they use that to make their point that the moon's not real. But hey, again, you know, everybody's entitled to their opinion, and that's fine. But the features are going to look different because they look different because the sun's through all this shadow detail in here that we're drawing. If you were to come back and draw just a couple hours later, the sun angle would be up higher. These shadows will all be shorter. This big black shadow that goes almost way to mid-crater, maybe in 6 hours, maybe all the way back in here someplace. It'll be halfway back. The whole character of the crater is going to look different because of the sun angle changing as we go. As I said, it's been a while. I think the last video I put up was back on the lunar eclipse night back in September, and I can't believe it's been that long. I've been doing some other things. I've been doing a little bit of writing. I don't know if you've looked at some of my earlier videos, but I actually self-published a memoir of my struggles to become a professional astronomer, which of course I never made, and did everything as an amateur. It was a fun project, and I actually sold a few books, but I did it mostly for my family and friends, and had a few local book signings, and it went fairly well. The book is called Waxing and Waning, a memoir of an amateur astronomer. It's farther back in some of my videos. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, if you'd like to check it out. It's still out. You can also get it in a Kindle. But I've been working on another book, Variable Stars, Cataclysmic Variable Stars. And that book is going to deal with this theme. And that book will only light of day if I can get it to pick me up and get it to a publisher. There's a good chance that I will spend a lot of time at book and then it'll never other than my desk. But anyway, time to hang up here. Happy holidays, everybody. We're in the Christmas season for me. For you that celebrate other holidays, happy holidays, and whatever you celebrate, happy to you. And I'm not sure when we'll get observing videos again. The winter months are coming up, as you know. Unfortunately, my observing site at my son's, where I have the most recent videos, yes, moving out of there, pull that pier out of there, and I'm going to be back to homeless and setting my telescope in the backyard from in the facility I live in. It makes it tougher. As I say, I'm no young. I'll be turning some next year, so up there it's getting a little harder. Still enjoy it though. So with that, I'll do. Hope you enjoy a little demonstration. I'll give it a try. Those of you who do feel would like to get some imagery of the moon, produce your own. It's lots of fun. So next time, guys, clear skies, good health, and we'll talk on the line. Take care now.